Oh my goodness, I cannot believe it is November. This has just really snuck up on me. Like, I know the order of the months, I know that it was coming, but I really feel like we jumped from like June, July, boom, November. And which is crazy because I showed up every day, but it reminds me of that crazy thing your parents used to tell you about someday time's just going to move so quickly and you're not even going to realize how quickly it moved. So, Mom, Dad, I'm really sorry. Yeah, you were right. Anywho, before I go off on a weird tangent or even further on one, welcome back. We are back with a quick, easy menu, and I think you're going to like this one. So, let's look at the menu. Now, personally, I have had some crazy weeks. These last 3 weeks have just been crazy booked, lots of stuff going on. And it really reminded me of some of my favorite super, super easy quick dinners. So that's really what we focused on this week. What I love about this is there is so much that we can actually pre prep and pre cook ahead of time. So if you have like busy sports nights or trick or treating, all the things that happen at night when you're supposed to be cooking dinner, this could really come in handy. So let's take a look at the grocery list. Now, I will say that this week we decided to use multiple meats. Like normally we have 2 to 3, sometimes a fourth one, but this week we're using 6 different kinds of meat. And the reason for that is we were able to afford all those different meats because we were very strategic in how we use some of these ingredients. Now, I want you to double check your pantry, your freezer, your fridge, because it's very possible that you already have some of these. Now, our total came out to $67.02, and that was at the Spokane, Washington Super Walmart. Um, I will say that I left a little bit more wiggle room just in case. And there's also lots of different twists and turns you can do on these recipes. So don't feel like you are stuck in making them exactly the way they are. Before I forget, in the description, there is a link to my website where you can see all of the slides. You can also print your own printable PDF that has the shopping list and all of the recipes. Don't forget to sign up for my email newsletter there so that way you'll know every time a new menu comes out. So let's go into our first meal. Now, I am a huge fan of the ham and potato soup that you can make like in the slow cooker or crock pot, whatever you want to call it. But sometimes I just want super quick and easy. I don't want to have to think ahead of time and set it up in the morning. I just want to be able to cook it that night. And this is one of those. And we're going to really kind of sneak in a bunch of vegetables so maybe your kids won't necessarily know. We're going to start with some carrots, some celery, and some onion. Just go ahead and saute those for a couple minutes until they're soft. Then we're going to add in our potatoes. I'm going to leave it to you whether you leave the skins on or you take them off, but honestly, I would leave them on if possible because that's where a lot of the fiber is. And then we're going to add in a 32-ounce container of chicken broth, and then we're going to add in some water. Now, you don't have to use chicken broth. You could easily switch it to any broth that you have. I just think that chicken broth has a nice mild flavor. Then we're going to bring that up to a boil, and we're just going to try to get those potatoes as soft and tender as possible. Then in a separate little saucepan, we're going to make a roux. A roux is what thickens like a thin liquid into more of a sauce. Okay. And we're going to do this super simple. We're going to melt some butter. We're going to sprinkle the flour. I like to use a whisk and just whisk it up. And then you're just going to let it cook for a minute or two because in this case, we're not going to make a roux that's real dark. We want it to be kind of more of a blonde roux. And then we're slowly going to add our milk in and let it simmer. And you'll start to see that it starts to thicken up. It looks almost like a gravy. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pour that into our pot of potato soup. And we're going to let that come to a boil, really kind of a simmer for another 10 minutes or so. And then we're also going to serve this with some toasted bread. Now, I don't know about you, but lately I've been finding these French bread loaves at Walmart for as low as like 36 cents. They're on markdown, and I cannot help myself. If I see one of these things for 36 cents, I go ahead and grab it and I put it in my freezer, and then I can use it at any time. I also just really like their French bread, so This week, we're going to use it as kind of like a side for a couple of dishes. And that's just my preference. If you want to use regular bread or whole wheat bread or any other bread, that's totally fine too. Now, this next one is simply going to be some ground turkey nachos. Now, what I love about this is that you could easily go ahead and cook off your ground turkey like on a Sunday night, put it in a Tupperware. And so on this night, all you would have to do is just heat up the ground turkey, add in the salsa and the black beans, bring it up to temperature, and then boom, all you have to do is assemble your nachos. Now, the reason why I chose to do the salsa instead of like a taco seasoning is sometimes you just want to mix it up. We're also going to be using salsa for another dish, so I just thought it was a nice different change of pace. And honestly, you can use any salsa you like. I actually really like this Great Value brand mild, but I would go with whatever's on sale or what you already have at home. And we're going to simply top these nachos once they're out of the oven with some chopped lettuce, tomato, and sour cream. And here's one of the things that we can pre-prep, okay? We're going to use salad in multiple meals, but they're all going to be pretty much like chopped lettuce. So I would go ahead and wash and chop your lettuce. I like to put it in a big Ziploc bag, and then I roll it up real tight so there's no air in it, and then close it. And then that easily lasts for more than a week at my house. And then I would go ahead and cut up the tomatoes, go ahead and dice them up because that's pretty much how we're going to use them all week. And then you've prepped once, and that covers 3 different meals. Super easy, big time saver. If you've ever had the pretzel pizza at Little Caesars, this is going to be similar to a dupe like that, like a copycat. We really enjoyed it the first couple times that Little Caesars put it out, but then I got to the point I don't really like their cheese sauce. So I figured out how to make it myself, and I just do it with a tomato sauce. Now keep in mind that I've got a pack of pizza dough mix on here, but you can easily make the dough yourself. We are going to buy flour this week, so it's very simple to do. The only reason I didn't do that option is because I know that not everybody has a stand mixer with a dough hook, and the pizza dough mix really just requires a fork. That's it. So either which way will work. And then we're getting a big 29-ounce can of tomato sauce. And so 8 ounces really is a lot for a pizza, so I would just go ahead and use the spoonfuls you need, save the rest of the tomato sauce for the next meal. And then how we make this a pretzel pizza is once we have our dough and we've let it rise and we stretch it out in our pan, whether you're doing like a round pizza on a pizza pan or if you're doing like a deep dish style pizza, both of them work. We're going to combine hot water and baking soda. I just use a fork and I just make sure it all dissolves. And then we use a brush and we're just going to brush it around the edges. Now here's the trick. You're going to brush it one time, let it sit 2 or 3 minutes, and then brush it a second time. And you're going to just use some coarse salt. We typically just use kosher salt. So we just sprinkle that, but keep in mind the more salt you put on it, the saltier it is. For us, we like it very lightly salted, but that's totally up to you. And then what goes better with pizza than an easy side salad? We've already got that lettuce and tomato pre-prepped. We can use either mozzarella cheese or cheddar cheese. And then if you want, you could use ranch dressing or whatever salad dressing you have. We are going to be getting Italian salad dressing this week, so you could easily use that as well. Now, I don't really like sneak veggies into my kids' dinners, but if I know that they happen to like a meal really well, I just slowly start adding more veggies to it, and that's kind of where this came from. So we're going to make very simple spaghetti, but we're going to do it with some mild Italian sausage. And what I like to do is go ahead and brown that, add in some diced onion, and we can either do diced zucchini and shredded carrots, or we can just put both of those in like a food processor until they're little tiny bites, because sometimes that works too. Because if it's not as obvious that it's vegetables, then maybe it won't be as noticeable taste wise. Who knows? My kids really love spaghetti, so I don't think they really notice that there's extra veggies in there. And then we're going to have that other half of a container of salsa. So I'm going to go ahead and add those in because it's going to add some chunks to the sauce because that's how I like it. And then we're going to use the rest of that 29-ounce container of tomato sauce. So even if you didn't use the full 8 ounces on the pizza, I would just whatever's left, go ahead and add it. And then, like I said, I really love this bread, but I also really love to have bread when I have pasta. I'm probably not the only one that likes to scrape the plate. So we're going to do that. And what's nice about this, you don't necessarily have to have veggies on the side because it's kind of more of like a one pot. Now, I've done these Italian grinder sandwiches before, and they're so good and they're so yummy. But honestly, sometimes I feel like the breading is just too much because you've got a lot of meat, you've got a lot of lettuce, and then you've got a lot of bread, and it's just super, super filling. So sometimes when you want that flavor, but you don't necessarily want it to be super, super filling, I like to do it as a salad. And honestly, I kind of like the salad better than the sandwich style. Now we're going to use the other half of a ham steak because this is a 2-pack. If you're using just leftover ham, I would just use about a cup, cup and a half. We're going to use the other half of the pack of the pepperoni, and we're going to throw in some salami. Now, if you don't necessarily like all those three, you could easily change it up to different items. I wouldn't get stuck on which meats you use, just use the ones that you like. We're still going to do the lettuce and tomato. Now, on this mozzarella cheese, sometimes I like to shred it, but that gets a little gummy. So, what I do is I actually do nice thin slices and then I just chop it into like little cubes. For me, it doesn't seem to get as gummy that way. Now, how we do it is we make one large salad bowl and we mix everything together. And the trick here is just to add a little bit of salad dressing at a time because you don't want your salad to be swimming because then it's a little too overpowering and all you can taste is the Italian dressing. I like to mix it together where it's just wet. Like everything's nicely coated, but it's not like salad soup, if you will. Now, once again, we're going to serve it with some of that Italian bread on the side. Now, if you wanted to, you could easily turn this into a chopped grinder sandwich. So, if you wanted to, you could get some hoagie rolls. I've done this even on like the hot dog buns. Those are all really easy variations, and you still get those same flavors. You ever make one of those just throw it all together meals like at the last minute and then it turns out to be so good? Well, this is that one for me. Now, we're going to start off by just going ahead and browning up our ground beef. And then I just go ahead and rinse it. And then we're going to use 2 packs of soy flavored ramen noodles. I want to say that the soy flavor is the best one to do this, but I imagine it would work with the beef flavor as well. These things can get very salty, so I'm going to leave whether you use both flavor packets up to you. Personally, I just use one and I add it to the ground beef, and then I just kind of scrape it out of the pan, put it in a bowl, and let it sit for a minute. Then I add to the pan, I take both of the ramen noodles and I crunch them until they're all little tiny bits and pieces. Whack them on the side of the kitchen counter, whatever you got to do. And then I put those in there with 2.5 cups of water and a 20-ounce bag of the broccoli stir fry. Now, you could completely skip the seasoning packets and you could just add some soy sauce. You could switch out the water for like beef broth. Those are all fine options. When I made this the first time, I was just going for simple and easy. But like I said, a lot of these recipes, you can easily swap them around. Do what works for you and your family. Once this heats up, I usually let it come to a boil and let it simmer for 3 to 5 minutes until the noodles are soft. And then the longer you cook this, it's going to evaporate some of that liquid. And then I add my ground beef back in and I stir it really well. And boom, it's ready to go. It is so tasty and flavorful. This is also one of those, it's a really good leftover buster. And what I mean by that, since we're already going to have celery and carrots, you could easily just get a bag of broccoli and take all of your leftover vegetables and throw it in with broccoli and do the same thing. So if you maybe don't like they have the long peas in there, the snap peas. They usually have like peppers, sometimes mushrooms in there. If you're not a big fan of these mixes, just kind of make your own. Now, a few years ago, my mom made this and it became such a big hit. And honestly, I always forget about it because it's just so simple. It's so tasty. So for dessert this week, we are going to make cracker toffee, but you may know this as crack. Okay, some people call it Christmas crack or cracker crack. But basically, this is super simple. You're going to take a baking sheet, you're going to cover it with aluminum foil, you're going to spray it well, and then you're going to lay out your crackers. We're going to use just the standard saltine style crackers, but as a spoiler alert, you can actually do this with any cracker. So I'm talking graham crackers, club crackers, really any crackers you have. Maybe they're a little stale or maybe you just don't really like them. Totally make some crack with them, and at least you get to use them up, right? In a saucepan, we're going to combine the butter and the brown sugar. I usually let the butter kind of melt first, and then I add my brown sugar, and then I stir it. Now, I've seen some people debate whether using light brown sugar or dark brown sugar. Honestly, the color of the toffee is going to be based on the color of your brown sugar. So if you like a darker color, buy dark, but honestly, sometimes I see that the dark is more expensive. So I'm just going to go with the light because it's usually the, little bit cheaper. And then the kicker here is once it comes up to a boil, you need to let it boil for about 3 minutes without stirring it. Okay. Plus, this stuff is like molten lava. You don't want to stir it real hard and possibly splash yourself with this. And be very, very careful. After the 3 minutes of boiling, you're going to pour that sugar mixture over the crackers. And I give it a little shimmy shake and just make sure that everything is coated. Do not touch the sugar with your fingers. Use a spatula if you need to. Just make sure everybody's covered. And then we're going to go ahead and put this in the oven for about 5 minutes. When you pull it out of the oven, we're going to top it with chocolate chips. And I just let it sit for a minute or two because all that heat coming off of that toffee, that brown sugar mixture, it's going to heat up your chocolate. Okay. And then I just use a spatula and I spread the chocolate out nice and thin. And here's where you get a little fun. Now, my mom would put like the chopped different nuts on top, but we've also done it with sprinkles. Halloween just happened, so there's a good chance you probably have some candy around your house. So I would just take some of the different candies and chop them up into, little crumbles, if you will, and just put that on top of the chocolate. I've also done it where you just put M&Ms on top. And as that chocolate sets, it's going to act like glue and hold all that down. So lots of different options. The one thing is that once you finish putting your topping on there, you really need to let this cool for about 20 minutes. And then I know some people like to cut it and keep it in the same cracker shape, but honestly, I just break it with my hands similar to toffee. But it is super yummy. Now, if you made it this far, I want to say thank you. And if you can do me a favor, just give this video a thumbs up. I am so excited that this YouTube channel has all of a sudden started growing real big and we're getting lots of new subscribers. And how you can help me is by liking, or if you get a chance, leave a comment. You can even just say, "Hi, Jen." That's totally fine. And I don't know if I mentioned it before, but definitely go to the website and sign up for the email newsletter. It comes out on Fridays and it'll give you a heads up when the newest video, the newest menu is out. We usually release those on Facebook on Saturday morning. So by being an insider on the email list, you get it a full day before anyone else. Also, go find us on Facebook. We have lots of discussions. We talk about different items you can find in your pantry or fridge and fun, cool ways to use them. Now, we also have a meal planning group on Facebook that you can go to and ask questions. You can look at other people's meal plans, see how they're reinventing leftovers, all kinds of fun stuff. So I hope that you guys are ready to jump into November and have a wonderful holiday season. Have a good week. Bye.